Good evening and welcome to Opinion Court. I'm Urwa Kamimo. The National Assembly continued debating the report on electoral reforms submitted by the Joint Select Committee. The Senate adopted the report yesterday, but the National Assembly voted to delete the clause stopping party hopping before adopting it, rather. So today's guests are on opposite sides of that issue to some extent. Moses Kuria, the Gatundu South MP, he represented Jubilee on the Joint Select Committee, and Millie Odhiambo, the MP from ODM for Mbita. We also have with us Opinion Court's resident political analyst, Professor Edward Kisiangani. So we'd like to hear from you. SMS us on 22422 or tweet us using the hashtag Opinion Court. That's all one word. So good evening and welcome to Opinion Court. Ms. Odhiambo, I'll start with you because speaking in the National Assembly, it seemed that you were in favor of expunging the party hopping clause. Why?
Well, if you listen to me, I said yesterday that the elephant in the room is the issue of party hopping, and that going by the mood of the House, I would support it, because actually what we are going to end up doing was to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
How so?
Because the House mood is for party hopping. So despite the fact that I, in principle, support, or rather do not support party hopping, but we had a situation where you either supported that provision or the whole report was going away yesterday. We were not going to pass that report. That was the mood of the House.
Help our viewers understand this. How, as an ODM MP, CORD MP, CORD ODM go to the streets calling for electoral reforms. You're presented with a report containing a raft of reforms, and then when it comes to a clause that affects your own political life, you take issue with the substance of it.
Well, I've told you, as Millie, I don't have issue. In fact, actually, not just as Millie, because my background is governance. So as a practitioner, governance practitioner, I do not encourage party hopping. I would not front for party hopping. But on the other hand, and even if you look at the Hansard in last parliament, it's an issue that has always been a challenge in the House. And the challenge is that our parties are actually have stunted growth. I don't want to say that they are young. They are not young, because all our parties do is they mutate. Today we have Jubilee, yesterday it was TNA, and then it was URP. You know, if you look back, it's, at some point it was KANU A, and then it was KANU. The same with ODM. So it's our parties mutate. So I can't say they are young. They are reasonably grown, but they have stunted growth. So they are not willing to grow and give space for members. And because of that, a lot of members are saying, yes, we do not want to party hop. We love our parties. We want to stay in our parties. But we want our parties to be democratic. I was able to listen very keenly to members. And I can assure you, Woodwork, that if I did not intervene with other members, that report would have gone. Because the members were adamant. And they have live examples to give. If you notice, actually, the person who moved that amendment was Olago Aluoch.
Right.
Olago, who is a member of parliament from Kisumu, was in ODM. And to all extents, I would actually say he's in ODM, other than the fact that, you know, technically, legally, he's in another party. But because of flawed party nomination that affects all parties, I've said it before, I'm consistent, it affects all our parties. Because of flawed party nominations, you find a popular candidate is left for a less popular candidate. So members are basically saying, if you do the party primaries well, nobody will hope. But because we have not matured, because we have chosen to have stunted growth as parties,
because you don't trust your party leaders to hold properly.
Let me talk. I'm becoming the devil's advocate here. And I'm telling you, because really personally, in principle, I wouldn't support party hopping.
Okay.
But I prefer to be the devil's advocate from what I was hearing in the House yesterday and even today. Yeah.
Mr. Kuria, as Ms. Odhiambo says, this is not the first attempt to curb party hopping. There was an attempt during the life of the last parliament.
And it was actually curbed. But I mean, we effected party hopping in the last parliament. We did.
Did you not set yourselves up for failure by including this clause, given how, controversial it is?
Indeed, this issue was very hotly contested, even at the committee level. And, we had largely 4 parties there. We had Jubilee as a joint team. ODM had its own way of looking at things when the debate came up at the committee level. Ford Kenya as well, and as well as Wiper. And actually, I had to lobby Ford Kenya and to lobby the Wiper to support the clause against party hopping. And I give it to the few guys from ODM who were there. James Olengo was very categorical in supporting the clause against party hopping. Junet was, he's also from the party leadership that looks after the issue of nominations. So it was not easy even coming with that. But our view was that Article 1, or actually the preamble of the Constitution, talks about Kenya being a multi-party state. That's how important the issue of parties is. And then goes ahead to dedicate a whole section, a whole article of the Constitution to deal with political parties. So the framers of this Constitution, the fathers of this Constitution, did realize that political parties are very important in our current multi-party dispensation. And then we ask ourselves, up to when are we going to play with the minds of Kenyans? And by the way, it is not true to say that we did not allow for party hopping. We did allow for party hopping. Only we said 74 days before the general election, stop party hopping. Today, you can go from Ford Kenya to Wiper to TNA to URP to Chama cha Sungura.
No, that's disingenuous. It defeats the purpose of the, you have to wait to know whether you're going to get the nomination, don't you?
If you have got 245 days from today to party hop, if you want, go to Ford Kenya, go to ODM. But on the 74 days before the general election, make up your mind. Say, this party called ODM, somehow they look like thieves. This party called Jubilee, somehow they look untrustworthy. You mean you cannot, if you do not utilize 245 days, how are you going to utilize 74 days? Why do you want to come to nominations of people you do not trust? Make up your mind and say, well, I am going to hope from party to party. Today, the Honorable Isaac Mwaura party hopped from ODM to Jubilee. Tomorrow he can hop back to ODM. And the other day, that is all legit. Until 15th of May 2017, when we said, now that party hopping comes to an end. Now you've seen who are your real partners. Now you've seen who you can trust. You've seen who look like a thief, who look like they are going to steal nomination. Make up your mind. You have the luxury of party hopping, but not all the way up to the last minute.
Prof, would you agree with that agreement, with that explanation rather? That you have all this time in the world to make up your mind, and then, after that you should no longer be able to, move to another party?
I think, grudgingly, I don't usually agree with Moses Kuria, because there are issues I have about the way he looks at things. But for this one, I think he makes sense, and I have to really struggle and agree with him. He has made a lot of sense. And the sense he's making is that really, this party hopping is not really right. Now, we have a dilemma. And this is what the country should be addressing. The dilemma we have is in 3 parts. The first part of the dilemma is the fact that there is this grasshopper mentality. In politics, when we talk about grasshopper mentality, we are referring to people who participate in politics, but they were actually, what the soul that rules them says this: we are not brave enough, we are not strong enough like them. So this grasshopper mentality, when it is translated into the political terrain that we have, makes people are not sure of it. So they will want to always be assisted. And if they are not assisted, they hope to the next level, hoping that they will reap something. So it is the mentality of we are not strong enough, we are not brave enough.
These are the members you're talking
yes,
about.
these people, you cannot depend on them to do battle. So I think they should be destroyed by the groups that are stuck in their political parties before the battle.
That's one camp. What's the next camp?
That is the first challenge. The second challenge we are having is that we don't have a strong political party culture. Although the Constitution, as Moses says, allows us to have a multi-party dispensation, we still haven't developed a strong multi-party platform on which political parties can be respected. So the question that arises and for the Republic is whether or not the best way to deal with the problem of a weak political culture, a weak political party culture, is to go party hopping with this grasshopper mentality, or to face the problem straight away and start discussing the problem.
In a minute.
Yes,
so that's the second one. The third one.
The third challenge we have, and which is very clear, is this. We are asking ourselves this question: are there political parties in Kenya? And in fact, that challenge is important because the pretense that there exists political parties in Kenya is not that. We have political power brokers, barons of power who collect money as it has been, and they really care. What they care about is who is calling the shots. So what we have is a caricature of political outfits calling themselves political parties. Now, again, the point is, how do we sort out this? I think from the beginning, when this debate started on how to deal with the IEBC and election issues, I was of the view, Woodwork, that we should never have left it to Parliament. The only inspiration for Parliament to want parliamentarians to meet and want to do something about the crisis of elections in Kenya was so long as you win power. In the Machiavellian thinking in the Prince.
Let's come to the Prince later.
Yes, what I'm saying is that the ends justify the means, and the end is to go to Parliament but not to build a strong political culture, and there are no values involved in this.
You want to come in?
Well, I partially agree and disagree with him. Actually, that's why you're seeing me very eager to respond, because especially when he was saying that he was agreeing with Moses. And the reason why I'm saying I'm partially agreeing with him is that his last statement actually speaks to what Moses has spoken about, which I don't agree with. We must be consistent on principle. As a governance practitioner, I say I do not support party hopping. It must be consistent throughout. Party hopping cannot be convenient today and not convenient tomorrow. It's about principle. So it cannot be convenient to encourage, for instance, Ababu to move to Jubilee, like the way the
former ODM Secretary General.
The way still by law is still the Secretary General. It's just by fact it's not. But encourage him to party hop, or encourage others to party hop, and then when it comes to the moment of nomination, then we suddenly say no, then it's not okay. If party hopping is wrong, then it should be wrong now. It should be consistently wrong. And that's why I'm saying that we have decided to ensure that our parties do not grow. They have stunted growth. And it is deliberate. We make them have stunted growth deliberately. And I will not agree with you when you say that we don't have parties.
We don't have.
We do have parties. But we have decided to make them have stunted growth. You know, all parties, you know, even the ones that are supposed to be 20 years have kwashako. They are at 5 years. We need to let our parties grow. And the way that we need to let our parties grow is to allow internal democracy in parties, and to allow the best winner to win and the loser to lose. But when you have a situation where I'm going into a process, when I'm not too sure whether when I win, I've invested time, I've invested emotions, I've invested energy, I have broken ranks with my friends, sometimes with family, and then when I go in some instances, there is even no nomination. And you are told suddenly somebody won. How? And this affects parties across the board.
And so surely, would that not make the case that Mr. Kuria makes, which is you have all the time in the world to read the writing on the wall, to gauge for yourself whether you can trust these leaders of the party, and if you can't trust them, to move, not to hold the party to ransom by waiting till the last minute. We heard earlier in the news the MP, Damas Otieno, explaining, you know, one person offers 3 million, 10 million, 5 million, 20 million. What do you do in that scenario? Should you not have known?
No, but that's what I'm saying, that it's not about whether you should be moving now. If Dalmas Otieno has faith in ODM, he should be in ODM. But if he has no faith in ODM, he should resign his position as the member of parliament. That is what democracy is about. You can't say, I do not have faith in ODM and continue staying in ODM.
Before you come in, Mr.
If you don't have faith in your party.
Okay, go ahead.
You resign. You resign from the party. You resign in real democracies if I don't have faith. And I think it's been done before. Honorable Raila Odinga resigned and went for re-election.
You should have said this in Parliament. But in Parliament you said the mood of the House is that we allow, party hopping is allowed. Now these arguments, we have taken these arguments on the floor of the House to tell people that this is not. So what did you say?
If you listen to me, I said very clearly that we were going to throw out the whole report. Why would I throw a report which has, for instance, removal of electoral commissioners, the reason for which Kenyans died? So I said, if it is, you know, it was a case of choosing the lesser evil. But for me as Millie, I don't support party hopping, but I also support internal party democracy.
So when shall we mature? When shall we mature?
We must mature now. Parties must choose to mature now.
Mr. Kuria?
I think even within the valid relativity of time, and Miri is saying even from today, no party hopping. Or I am saying do it until the number 74 before the general election. But I think we're talking about the same thing. About fidelity to political parties, about not having your cake and eating it at the same time.
Yes.
Either you belong to Jubilee, ugly, dark, dirty as it is, or called ugly, dirty, and dirty as it is. Do not come to all the way to nomination, say, nikishindwa hapa, then I'm going to look for another party. You have all the time to say, by the way things are going here, I don't trust Raila Odinga is going to administer, you know, fair nominations within ODM and go for another party before. Why wait until the last minute? Why do the charity sweepstake kind of politics, patapotea, that you go all the way and say, let me see, maybe by good luck I might be the one they rig in, not out. If they rig me in, then I stay in there. Right. If they rig me out, then I go. Make your decision now. That is how we are going to build strong parties. And I'm very happy about one thing, that the top leadership of CORD, and I know this because I've talked to Raila Odinga myself, and the top leadership of Jubilee are united against the issue of party hopping. Number two, party hopping goes against the constitutional provisions of strengthening political parties as a vehicle of expressing democratic will of the people of Kenya. So if I was the president of this country, even if we take that bill there, I would reject it. I am not the president. But I'm saying if I was the president, I would veto it. I would refuse it. Because up to when do you want to be just another president who came and who was cowed away the way Kibaki was? Yeah? About saying,
so, Mr. Kuria, how do you respond to the charges of your fellow colleagues who say that the committee overreached itself in including this clause in party hopping, and that this is actually tyranny of political parties that you're endorsing?
But you see, you are given four thematic areas. One is whether IEBC is guilty. Two is how they vacate. Three is how we strengthen IEBC. And lastly, is electoral reform. Yeah. What is more electoral reforms than the issue of political parties? It is not companies that participate in elections. It is not churches. It is not NGOs. It is political parties. So when you talk about political reforms of essence, you are talking about political parties. And that's what we were saying. Number one, as Jubilee, we are going to be having our nominations conducted by IEBC. And today I was actually trying to reach out to the CORD leadership to tell them to follow suit, so that even we actually go and not just have nomination, but have nominations on the same day and even force IEBC to conduct party nominations using the same technology, BVR, EVID, results transmission, that's going to be used during the final, elections. Because that way, we even test the efficacy, the robustness.
But Moses, there was a weakness. I read the report, the recommendations in the report about election. There was one document about the electoral offences. I know about the
consolidated the electoral reforms,
the electoral offences. That I support. But then there is nothing in the electoral offences in a specific sense to deal with these power barons who change, like what the Dalmas Otieno is talking about, who midway they are given 20 million and they change the nomination process. If there was a way we can punish these people who change the political terrain because they have decided they have received more money, then that would be okay. And political parties can be allowed to even replace their presidential candidates.
It's only very simple.
Yes.
I do agree with some concerns of some members. In all likelihood, if the next nominee for ODM for Bita is Miri Odhiambo, it's very difficult to reverse that at the general election. So nominations become a matter of life and death. And that's what I'm really saying. Let us all invest in having IEBC to conduct our nominations. So the same IEBC you will face in the general elections in Bita is the same one you face in the nomination. The same technology, BVR, EVID, results transmission, we face it at nomination because we are dealing with the democratic and constitutional rights of Kenya.
Okay, so we've been talking about the deletion of this clause from the report. What's the implication, given that we hear there'll be bills? Does this have any sort of legal implication?
Zero. It's like an opinion poll in China. Accurate but of no consequence.
I would disagree a little. And the reason is that we do not pass reports in vain. So when you pass a report as Parliament, it is a report with certain recommendations. And those recommendations for this particular report is geared towards a direction. And the direction is for passing legislation.
It has an impact on the draft bill.
Well, it's more persuasive, what I would call in law more persuasive, but not binding. Not binding in the sense that we are coming up with laws. And from the mood, again, I'm telling you about the mood of the House. Sometimes you have to be alive to politics. And the politics and the mood of the House is that they want to party hop. And I can assure you that if we go on simple majority, as at the mood of the House today, I don't know about next week or tomorrow, but as today, they would pass party hopping.
What about the dissonance with the Senate, which adopted the report without changing
it? Then it would require that we go on mediation if our own laws allow for party hopping.
Prof, I'll give you the final word. Doesn't this mean, though, that even though we agreed to this electoral reforms report as a political settlement, that the precedence this sets means that further amendments are likely that will water down the whole thing?
You see, the emphasis is on party hopping, but I've read the documentation. There are more serious issues there which will still come up. Probably they will require Parliament to talk about. One of them that I can quickly point out to my friend Moses, because he attended the meeting, is there is something about results transmission. And when you talk about the results transmission, it starts with the polling station to the county to the national, which is the old story. But we had hoped that they would recommend that in the case of a dispute, in the event of a dispute, at the National Tallying Center, the results of the polling station are supreme. That is where we do a reference. But because that is where the accounting took place.
Essentially what you're saying, Prof, is that you think that more changes are likely.
Yeah, but you see, if they fail politicians, remember that Emilio Odhiambo and Moses Kuria are legislators, and they did not elect themselves. So they are in Parliament by right. So the work of legislation is theirs. The only thing we remain with, we as citizens, is if they pass laws which violate the Constitution, we can go to court and reverse it. But we cannot deny them their right to do what? To do the legislation, even when they are doing
their own. This is my final, I hear you what you're saying about resource transmission. The problem we had, and we wanted to go the way you are saying.
Yes.
But if you are now a petition, a presidential election, you will have 33,000 respondents because every returning officer now becomes a respondent.
Yes.
That's the tragedy we had. But let me say something here, and speaking for politicians. We say about the mood of the house. What about the mood of the country? We need to compare always the mood of the house and the mood of the country. Unfortunately, in this case, the country wants to party hopping. So when you are defeated in nomination, they can eat your money. That's the tragedy we have.
Okay, and so that's where we'll end Opinion Court this evening. I'll thank our guests. We've had the ODM MP from Bita, Millie Odhiambo. We've also had the Gatundu South MP from TNA, well, Jubilee, Moses Kuria, and we've also had our resident analyst, Professor Edward Kisiangani. My name is Odwa Kamimo.